Good morning out there. Welcome to the drone-free comic book show on a Sunday morning. And I did say comic book twice. We woke up super early, and we had canceled the original show for you subscribers. And everyone out there should be subscribed and thumbs up and hit the button and everything. And because we have Christmas festivities going on, church plays with the step kids participating in. He's running soundboards and everything, and a few other things that were going to go on and happen this morning. And then I woke up super early and found out that our schedule that was going to start at 9 got moved up a little bit. So we are together. And if you've been watching the news, apparently New Jersey has had a wave of drones. and I felt like I was watching Orson Welles, listening to Orson Welles doing his War of the Worlds radio show live back in the 30s and stuff. So whatever's going on is whatever's going on. But come on in here, grab some coffee. Don't worry about that stuff because we're going to look at some cool stuff. This is going to ease you into your morning. Today is December 15th, 2024 for you people in the future. And I went to a comic book convention last week, right? And it was Bristol, Tennessee, Tri-Cities Comic Book Convention hosted by the great Chris Garvey, and was able to meet up with Josh guys. Josh told him about some of the nice compliments people have said. We had a little lunch, went to Mountain Empire Comic Book Shop. Maybe I'll put that stuff in here. I don't know. And I got to tell you, it was one of the cons where the day where I felt like I was treated like a king, right? I got there a little bit early, and I didn't have to pay the VIP price. I paid half price, got in early, walked around, saw a couple dealers that it was great to be remembered considering how we only see each other now and then. And probably Instagram helps out a little bit. Make sure you have me on Instagram so you can get a preview of things I might show on this show. And Pop Comics, do a big shout out to Pop Comics. I believe that's what Joey's business is. But talked to him, had great talked about wives, relationships, comics and how it involves relationships. He loved my story about how to deal with that. And then I got to watch his table. Then we went to Mountain Empire Comics, and the owner Rob let Josh and I go into the back room to see the secret stash. Got to go through some of that stuff, and it was the same stuff I had seen previously over a year ago, maybe a little bit over a year ago. But it was still good to be able to come in there. And the cats have decided to come in. So before we get into the, and like I said, it's probably going to be a little bit of a shorter show, but we'll see where we go, right? Like I said, I ended up unexpectedly with some time. But let me preface that before we move on for me plugging something else. The Comics and Coffee show where I just go through a run of comics that people are going to show up for the John Byrne X-Men one. I will be doing all things John Byrne. There's been John Byrne X-Men the Hidden Years, John Byrne OMAC miniseries that he did, all sorts of things that people are wanting. I'll get to them all. I'll do them all. Yes, look at this. John is here. Be like John, as I've said it. Subscribe, thumbs up, and hit that bell in case I get insomnia again and we do this. Good morning, Paolo. Great to see you. It's still morning in Portugal. We lined up. Finally, rewind up. And everybody saying good morning to each other. So yeah, we're going to be doing those, and I may not exclusively do those on Sunday mornings, okay? Because usually it seems like we get through 12 issues at a time. Great feedback on it. I don't think it's so much my presentation. I think there are people out here in comic book YouTube, in my opinion, from my viewpoint, I could be completely wrong, and they just want somebody to show comics and talk comics a little bit. So we'll make room for that. We're also going to be making room for something I want to do. Little selfish, and it will get better because we're trying new things. It's a learning process. But check out a video, a live stream I did previous in the week. I had a good time with it. It is up. But we're going to be showing some art and things like that. And we're not talking about like professional artist stuff. We're talking about the fun that kind of came from comics where as a kid, comics and great music will make you be creative, pick up a pencil, pick up a guitar, and do things. And I decided I wanted to play around with that idea, right? So for now, I mean, it'll still be things. So I went through some. I had a good time with it, but but there's room for improvement. And I went into there and I found just an image of Usagi that caught my eye, and I went ahead and live I sort of doodled and played around with some watercolors and did a Usagi. And then I was sitting around with some comics during lunch one day when I actually got a lunch, and of course I ended up doing a better one in my $5 sketchbook here. Played around with Gru. That is a tongue sticking out of his mouth. That's from I think issue 32 or something. And played around with some Sergio stuff. So check out that video. Give it a thumbs up. Fast forward and the presentation will get better. But yeah, this is the sketchbook with ideas where I just play around and see what goes on. And these right here are not serious. These are not serious drawings. This one I got some new markers and just wanted to play around playing with the markers to see how they work. This was I think it was some water pens I had, watercolor pens or something. I just wanted something quick to play around to see how they reacted on paper. Playing around with leather from an Akira inspired drawing here. Of course, my Johnny Ramones. Playing around with just figure drawing, figuring out, just playing around. This is the playing around one. Completely wrong paper to be doing ink wash stuff. And this is what I'm saying. This one right here, this is a 5-minute doodle while my wife was brushing her teeth a couple years ago, because I've got these brush markers that I wanted to see how they worked. So it was fun stuff. So we'll be doing stuff like that. And I think the actual next video I'm going to be doing is an actual art portfolio that I have up here that I found. And I don't remember what's in it. And it's stuff from probably the last 4 or 5 years. Okay. So go check those out, guys. Okay. Oh, thanks for the compliment. Everybody is showing up. Thank you. Thank you. It's been rescheduled for next week, but make sure you hit the bell because I have the stream up on StreamYard. I have the show up. I'll go just click live and we'll go. But I'm probably going to be doing it, probably might be in an evening. With the holidays coming up, could be at any time. Victor Shea, great to see you. And Gru, awesome artwork. Yeah, I've really been on a little bit of a Gru kick. I always get into a Sergio Aragonés deep dive every now and then, from his plop work in the 70s to just whatever catches my eye with him. So now let's do the comic book haul, right? The comic book haul, right? Now, as you see in the title of this, we're going to save this to last, but because I want to talk about a few things, right? But I ended up buying this, and I will show the John Byrne signature that I found in that when I got home. Blew my mind. I'm gonna have to tell the dealer about that next time I see him, right? So let's get in here. This is a mix. These are from the Tri-Cities Comic Con that took place, I think, on December 5th. So it's been, about a week ago, whatever that was. Not the 5th, but anyway, the weekend before, the 7th, I believe. And they get better, right? But anyway, there's maybe, I think, 2 books from Mountain Empire Comics, 1 book that came in from eBay, and a few other odds and ends, right? So this is an upgrade, right? Amazing Spider-Man 268, again, with a John Byrne cover. It's blown my mind how much John Byrne is popping up in my collection and when I'm out there, right? Something's happened to where like the stars have aligned. I've always been a John Byrne nut, fan, I guess, from the early days. I swear I can't think of how old I was, but it had to be around 5 or 6 when I saw the Yesterday Quest. That's when I became a John Byrne, the artist, fan, right? But anyway, this is a Secret Wars 2 crossover where the Beyonder, you just got to read the Secret Wars 2. I'm not going to go into a deep dive on the story, but basically Secret Wars 2, to me, Jim Shooter pretty much retold Pinocchio and then added into the things about morals and things with humans and stuff. We got into greed and monetary things, and the Beyonder ended up turning an entire building with people in it into gold, and it collapses. John Byrne came in with the Secret Wars 2 crossover cover here. He did not do the interiors. And there's a Web of Spider-Man issue that connects to this, where Spider-Man is in the red costume. I have these, and I have no explanation for what happened, but one day I get into the boxes. I bought these when they came out in '85. And I get into the boxes, and of all the comics in there, what I'm guessing is either my brother or stepdad may have gotten into my collection at this time. That's all I can figure out. And they were water damaged. I was just like stunned and confused because I'm like, how did that happen? So I finally got around to replacing one of them, and I'll have to do the other one. I'm starting to realize that some of the odds things that have happened where I've had books disappear and stuff, I keep forgetting that the stepdad mainly had access to my comics, of course, and he was not the most stand-up guy. So I don't think he would, So anyway, and then this is a reader's copy, and I did pay $5 for it, right? But this is the Hulk, the End, and I cannot believe that this is a 22-year-old comic, guys. Okay. And this was fantastic. Back in the day, they were doing a lot of the End one-shots with their character. The other one that I know I have for sure is a Garth Ennis, Corbin doing Punisher the End, which is fantastic. I have a Alan Davis. I showed that in my Alan Davis video. Alan Davis the End miniseries, but they also had X-Men the End, Logan the End, and things like this. But this was the one where Peter David took the tale of Proteus, stealing fire from the gods and stuff like that, and applied it to the Hulk, and the Hulk in the mythology and Bruce Banner and things, right? And Dale Keown had come back to do this one shot. Dale Keown is one of the Hulk artists that just blew everyone away. And I always see a lot of John Byrne, of all people, in Dale Keown's work, and he really did his own thing with that style. So there is some John Byrne influence, in my opinion, but by no means a John Byrne clone. I can't even believe I feel the need to say that. So we come in there, and this is something, if you can find cheap, pick it up before you decide. I feel like this has been reprinted again, maybe in a hardback or something. I don't know. But The Last Titan, and we're going to have a glare this morning. So anyway, we'll call this a post-apocalyptic tale. But Peter David was just on all cylinders. Peter David has written some fantastic stories with many characters, but the Hulk was the one. So this is fantastic, with a dash of mythology in there. Now the Nam, right? If you were there in the 80s, it's the Nam, okay? But this is Mike Golden, right? I actually have a few of these signed by Mike Golden. This came out when Platoon was on, Rambo. In the 80s, you had a little bit of talk about Vietnam. You would have shows where veterans would come on there, and they would say that movie Platoon, that is not how it was. You have people saying that is exactly what it was. And then we got into the Born on the 4th of July movies, and it was like roosters were coming home to roost. And I started finding out things like, oh God, what was it? Was it Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter? Like, I did not realize there was over 200,000 draft dodgers and stuff because of this war and things. And, I grew up in the aftermath of this, and I actually have like this weird memory of the news. I can remember one lottery. I mean, I should not be old enough to really remember that, but I can remember watching the news and seeing a lottery come up for the draft and things, right? So all of a sudden they got Doug Murray, I believe that's the writer's name, who was there. Now, this book came out in 1985, I do believe, 86, excuse me. And I think it takes place in 1966. And it's Doug Murray, more or less. They're trying to give you an actual realistic version of what it was like to be there through his experience. And what I liked is in the back of this first issue, it explains that we are trying to give you a realistic view of what it was like to be there. But of course, we have a Comics Code Authority, so you're going to have to read between the lines of this, right? And they explain that with each issue, one issue comes out 30 days later, the second issue comes out, and we're 30 days later in their timeline. And apparently you stayed in Nam you did your tour for a year. I'm a much more knowledgeable about this due to being in my military experience in the 90s, and I actually served with some Vietnam veterans. But I wanted to go ahead and tell you, anybody that was actually there, they won't talk about it. Okay, so I'm a little bit more knowledgeable, but I'm breaking it down exactly what's in the book. So anyway, you spent 12 months on tour, so they were letting you know that you would see the year of the characters, and they would probably rotate as people came in to serve. Okay, so I thought this was. I finally got around to actually reading this. I probably have about 13 issues, and this is my second copy of number 1. I have 1, 2, and I think number 8 signed by Mike Golden several years ago, right? But it was nice just to read a story that had a beginning, middle, and an end. I did not see any "me love you long time" moments yet, but there are hookers and a brothel in this, and it doesn't go the way you think it will, right? If you look at all the buddies and things like that. It also uses actual terminology, the language, if you're in the military, but you have a glossary in the back they provide, right? It's not a lot of work. It's a lot of great artwork and a lot of fun. And if you guys know anything about this series, eventually they actually brought in the Punisher. When the Punisher came out, he was a Vietnam vet, of course, which they actually play into this where you see Frank Castle and Nam. I wasn't on the series by then, right? But this book was hot for a hot minute, if you will. Okay. So, yeah, oh man, what was this? The rat? Anyway, they get into the tunnels in this issue. Well, we'll just leave it at that. So anyway, I was able to pick up some of those, and those were super cheap. I think they got from a dollar box, but if you bought so many, you got a few free. So those were like $5. Now, I don't expect this to blow you away. I really don't, right? But now I have completed my Secret Origins run, 50 issues. There were 3 annuals. I need 1 annual, but I don't really count the annual with it. But I love the reference material. Okay, so this is Secret Origins featuring the Blackhawks from number 45. And at this point, they did not know that they were going to be canceled with issue 50, which is fine. And in this one, you always got 2 features. Sometimes you got 3 features. But we had the Blackhawk Secret Origins in El Diablo. You always sort of got like a classic character, Golden Age, Silver Age, and maybe a modern one most of the time. But what was really cool about this one is when they retold the tale of the Blackhawks, they sit here and let you know that they pull in the Howard Chaykin stuff that he worked on. But anyway, for some reason, this was an issue I could not find. That's what blew me away about it. It's not anything. It's not a key book. It's not, I don't know a lot of Blackhawk fans anymore. I think the people who are into it's because Will Eisner sort of touched them. Working on them a little bit and gave them a touch. But yeah, this is written by Martin Pascal based on material by Will Eisner and Howard Chaykin, which blew my mind. I'm not going to get into what Will Eisner did on the book. Okay, I will just leave it at that, right? But what I found very interesting, and look at that. I love this is what I love about comics. There's always that scene of somebody walking down the cold streets. That's an Eisner. I'm positive that's an Eisner thing, right? That's where they started and stuff. Even when I read the first issue of The Crow and you see the Crow walking down the streets of Detroit, there is so much Eisner in that page. It blew me away, right? But anyway, but when you get back here, like I read everything when I get these books. They were letting you know about upcoming events, and we missed out on something I think would have been very cool in Secret Origins. Let me find it here. They were going to keep an eye out for issues that were going to have Mon-El, Geoforce, Black Canary, Dolphin, Red Tornado, Stanley and his monster. We got the Stanley and his monster. They're going to do Wonder Woman and Swamp Thing, Silent Night. I would love to have had a Swamp Thing Secret Origins issue because I believe, let me see what year this was. Hold on. I believe this was at a time when Alan Moore was still on the book, or they still had a working relationship with him. What year was this? See, probably not. I think this series started in 86. So we're about 4 years into this. I bet this is like around 1990. 89, I think. I'm finding trademarks for 89. I don't know why 1989. So yeah, I don't know. But it would have been very cool to have a Secret Origins with Alan Moore. And if you don't think that was possible, They had Neil Gaiman doing a Poison Ivy issue. Grant Morrison did an Animal Man issue. So they did bring in writers and stuff, right? And it doesn't. In some of those stories were already written and published later. You know what I mean? Like they had a file of them and stuff, right? To keep going with some of those issues. So that was very cool. That was very cool to find. This is an eBay, and I'll tell you exactly why I got this. Right? This was an eBay haul. This is the Clive Barker's Hellraiser Holiday Dark Holiday Special, and that is a Kevin O'Neill cover. He did not do the interior in there, but this is from the Epic line of comics, 1992, if I do believe. So, in the tradition of the Ambush Bug Holiday Christmas Special, in the tradition of the Lobo Paramilitary Christmas Special, one of my favorites with Simon Bisley, it should be yours. Apparently, we got a Dark Holiday Special from Epic, you know. But when I was at the comic book convention, the Tri-Cities comic book convention I was telling you about, I ended up talking to some people. And like I said, it was a fun time and everything like that. But there's one guy in particular. Now, he's on his mission. He's doing his thing. This isn't a judgment of the person. This is a observation of the behavior that I saw. But this one guy was very intense, and he was just booking through there, and he was spending a lot of money making sure that he got keys and high grade stuff and everything like that, right? So while I was talking to Pop Comics and stuff, and already bought some stuff off of them, I'll show you and everything like that. Somehow Clive Barker came up. Maybe I pulled up my CLZ app or something. We got into a conversation. We were talking comics, and all of a sudden he's like, "Did you see on my wall this book he had for 25?" And as he said that, I saw the dude. I'm not saying he was following me around, but he was right there. I've had people shadow me at flea markets before because I was finding the books and everything. But I saw him jerk his head around and grab it. Like he just happened to be right there. And Joe turned around to get it, and the guy said, "I already grabbed it." Looked right at him, acknowledged it and stuff, right? So I got curious about it, got on eBay, sent an offer to the seller, and ended up getting it for about $4 less than what the other person bought it for, which included shipping. I don't usually like spending that much on the books, on a whim. Usually I want to save that stuff for something I really want or need, but this ended up being worth it. If you like horror books, if you like Clive Barker horror books, you really need to sample some of this Epic stuff because it's not Stephen King, people. This is not House of Mystery. Okay. It's a mixed bag. You know what I mean? Some of the stuff is can be intense or uncomfortable, or you're going to feel like you need a shower, or some of it falls flat, just to be opinion, just let you know. But I'll show you stuff, but I enjoy the Hellraiser series from Epic, and I'm trying to put together the Nightbreed, Clive Barker's Nightbreed from Epic, 25 issues. Those are fantastic. All right, we have some great comments here, and we started early, so we can take our time here. All right, John. Hey, awesome. I grew awesome artwork. I appreciate it, man. Like I said, that's just a doodle there. Yep. John Byrne. I tell you what, he brought a lot. Say what you will about his behavior online and opinions on things and such, man. But he brought a lot of people a lot of joy in these books. Okay, whatever happened to American War Comics? The nom was amazing. Yeah, it's a genre. I think the last person I saw really putting who put a little bit into war comics would be Brian Azzarello and Joe Kubert on a Sergeant Rock miniseries they did in the 2000s. Garth Ennis, he's a huge war comics fan, and I feel like he's that's his passion to study war history and stuff, right? He's done quite a bit with some war comics. Dale Keown got much better, even though he was producing fewer comics. Dale Keown, I read an interview where one of the reasons he enjoyed doing Pitt was because he's actually more of a musician at the time, is how he came off. He's more of a musician and a composer than an artist, but he loved, but he wasn't diminishing his love of doing art and stuff. It wasn't one of those things where it was unrequited, like I want to be doing this, but I got stuck doing this. It's not that. So when they were in the interview that I remember, it was Pitt. It was about his work at Image and stuff. If I remember right, his career in general, but more about that. Had to be a Wizard magazine. But what he would do is he was pretty much loving life. He said, "What I do is I go over here and I'll work on Pitt, on a comic, and then I'll go over here and do some music for a while, just whatever he felt like doing, whatever hit." So he would jump on. That's what he would do. So I mean, that's fantastic. You know what I mean? That's the dream. Oh man. Okay. Most American writers get too self-conscious about history. Same reason you don't have westerns anymore, and in Europe we do. I'm sure that's a factor. Self-conscious. I'm sure editorials and things like that. But I also think there's something about experience. Like I said, the Nam book that I was talking about, where it's written by an actual Vietnam veteran. One of the things that just made Kirby so, it seems like the more I learned about Kirby, the better he got when I was growing up. Then I loved finding out that the quote was true, where he said that, when he joined the military, they gave him an M16 or whatever they had at that time. They had an M16. They gave him an M16 and a chocolate bar and said, "Go kill Hitler." So he tried. I was like, wow, that was great. So yeah, I also think it's experience in being there. You can study history and rehash it in a story, or you can pull from it. If you read the Fourth World, Kirby, it's not a secret. You probably already people know this. Is basically Darkseid was like based on Hitler, and he pulled in a lot of things he saw from World War II, along with religions and stuff like that, into Darkseid in the Fourth World. Okay. If Paulo, this may be true, the name certainly didn't glorify the conflict. Right, right. And that's another thing I kind of wonder. I wonder if some people just don't want the hassle because they run across people. And I've already seen this. I'm not going to name the YouTuber and stuff, right? But they had a writer who did some war comics, and they were talking to him. And because his dad was in NAM, they got into some kind of argument. Maybe I misread it because I got out of there. So I was sort of like, oh my God, So yeah, people get a little touchy. And where are we at here? Let me finish reading this, Paolo. In the 80s, there were plenty of people with personal experience in Vietnam. Now in the 2020s, there are people who are squeamish and more about realistic conflict. Oh yeah, absolutely. Great cover. Kevin O'Neill was so gifted. I think we were on the same page with that, Paolo. That's what I'm getting at. Great cover. Kevin O'Neill was gifted at making anything disturbing. Absolutely. Okay, have a great lunch, Paolo. You have a great rest of the day. All right, everybody. Dennis Hayes has joined us. Great to see you, Dennis. Am I the only person who remembers Ecto Kid? No, you're not. You are not the only person that remembers Ecto Kid. You're talking about the Clive Barker line of superhero comics: Ecto Kid, Hex and Hokum. Steve Scorsese was on some book there, and that kind of helped lead him to Matrix, believe it or not. Yeah. Ecto Kid. Have you checked out the Boom Hellraiser books? They bring stuff in from Lord of Illusions, Harry Demars, excuse me for butchering that name, character. I have the Nightbreed. Nightbreed is my all-time favorite work of Clive's, and the work has been on it in comics and stuff. But I'm waiting to complete all 12 issues of that Nightbreed series, and I pick up the Hellraisers when I have, right? Eventually, I will sit down and read those at some point. I flipped through them. I've read bits and pieces. I think they're fantastic. There are times where I think it's kind of hard to compare them to the epic stuff because they're so different with how they approached it and everything, right? All right, let's move on here. Right? So speaking of Clive Barker's Hellraiser, I have this series in trade. I believe there was 20 of them. This was the anthology series, right? And I'm always picking these up, trying to get them. I have I don't know, 3 or 4 I was originally able to get back in the day. No access to comic book companies and stuff, right? Or comic book stores, guys. You know what I'm saying? But apparently it went bi-monthly. And that might explain why I was not able to get many issues. Apparently it was quarterly before this. I never realized that because I did not have them on the stand. You know what I'm saying? You had to find these at comic book shops, I guess, at the time. But anyway, you would get 3 or 4 stories in these, like I said. and always had rotating teams and people coming in and doing things. This one that I'm excited about actually has Doug Murray, Dwayne McDuffie, and Gray Morrow. Oh my gosh, I'm a Gray Morrow fan. I like those older guys. What are you doing there, Lester? Lester, you know better. I have the cat in there destroying the house. We're not going to let that will not stand. So anyway, I love picking these up, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I actually paid $10 for these. For some reason, I've been finding these in dollar boxes off and on for years, maybe $2 or $3 here and there for these. And now every time I found them, they're $10. But the dealer was an extremely nice guy. Had his dad there talking with him. He'd come down to sell at this convention. Got to see his family again. It was just a cool thing. You know what I mean? It was a cool thing. And sometimes, I'm a cheap bastard anyway. It's not that big a deal. But it's little things like that will make me like, this is a nice guy. I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad doing that. That's just how I am. And off the same dealer, I got this. Like I said, he gave me a great deal on these 3 books here. I believe. No, I think I may have left out a book or two somewhere, guys. I can't remember. I'm getting confused here. I do believe I may have left a book or two out, but that's all right. But I found this. Now, the reason, and I got a fantastic deal on this, right? The Captain Marvel movie a few years ago, there was a buzz about it coming out, if you do remember. And I'm a Shazam nut. Have been since a kid. I've actually met the actor who played him on the Captain Marvel Shazam filmation show of the 70s, where we had the Mighty Isis. I never stood a chance. Of course, that's why I was right there. He was in the Stepdad's or the Uncle's World Finest books by the time I got around. And I had this number 1, and the number 1 had a rusty staple, if you will, right? So with the buzz that was going on and the condition of the book, I went ahead and sold it. Not a big deal, not a big deal. But you always have that little bit of regret. You don't realize, maybe I should have kept it and stuff, right? So it was amazing now that we've come out on the other end of 2 Shazam movies. The James Gunn reboot and the last movie being atrocious. I'm not saying the first one was a work of art, but it was fun. So it was great to be able to replace this with an upgrade and just a slight little spine roll on here if you want to be picky. Not a lot to say about this, but this is the debut issue and the debut in general of Captain Marvel with DC. I think CC Beck was still working on it. And of course, DC's got to let you know, in case people didn't remember the character back in the early 70s, they had to pull in Superman. And if you'll notice, he's just a little bit taller. I might be reading into things, but you always had to make sure that DC lets you know that, we're the ones with Superman. And if you know the history with these two characters, this was, I would imagine that somebody in the know knew about the history between the lawsuits and how Captain Marvel actually outsold Superman for a while. To see these two on the covers together had to be surreal, And of course, that by this time Marvel had got the trademark for the Captain Marvel name and went with it, so that's why they have Shazam on the cover. So that was really cool to find. And then this was $3, guys. I'm going to go ahead and tell you this was $3. This is Powers number 1. Yes, it is a Bendis comic. I have always stated I cannot stand Bendis's writing when it comes to superheroes. The guy is a crime writer, in my opinion. And this mixes superheroes and detectives, if you will, right? And this book was hot when it came in. Oh, I don't know. I think it was a 2001, guys. Who knows? $3. I have every issue of Powers. I even had the Powers coloring book, activity book that they would have gave out to kids in schools on how to be safe in the dangers and warnings of superheroes in your world. And I kind of recommend it. You got to be in the long haul. I would read it in trade because of his pacing, the way Bendis writes. You need to sit down and read them all because you can read one issue in 30 seconds and be like, what? Much more powerful when you put them together. And a lot of people, I'm going to go blank on it, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you, the first story they had was Who Killed Retro Girl. Retro Girl apparently is everybody's sweetheart when it came to heroes in this world. And he played around with the idea of, he kind of tied in the John Lennon getting killed, right? The person who killed Retro Girl ended up being a super fan who looked like John Lennon. I just read another comic a couple months ago where that was not an original idea. Somebody else did it in the 80s and stuff. So I'm not saying that Bendis took that idea, but I'm thinking maybe great minds think alike with writers. Let's put it that way, right? So when I was reading the book that came out in the 80s or something, it's going to kill me till I remember, figure out who did it, what the book was, and I'll update you if I remember. But usually I put those things to the side so I do remember. But anyway, I was sort of like, oh my gosh, not an original Bendis idea. I don't know. But I got this just for shits and giggles, right? And if you go way back on my channel, I did a review of Powers, I believe. And I had it in my head how I was going to talk about it. I would mentally sometimes start these essays, book reports in my head while I'm driving, and maybe I'll remember, maybe I don't. So I'm sitting there and I'm talking about Powers. I was talking about the only real complaints I saw about the book was people found Avon Omin's art rather jarring and a poor man's Bruce Timm. But my next sentence was going like, they came around and they saw the genius and they say he's doing his own thing. I didn't say that. I forgot to say that while I was doing the book review. Probably about 2 weeks after I did the video, Mike Avon Omi, and it's still there, came on and said, gee, thanks, left a comment. And I was like, oh no. I went back to see what the problem was and saw that I did not say that. I was like, oh crap. I just pretty much said his art sucked. And this was another book I got. Yeah, I think there's a book or two floating around here. This is another book I got. I really thought hard about this, and I went ahead and bought this, right? But this is a hardback, volume 2 of the original volume 1 Authority series. But this is issues 13 to the last issue, number 29. Now, this is a Frank Quitely cover. I love how they took this image from one of the comics of the Authority looking down on you as they're floating in the air. But apparently they came out with 2 volumes of this in hardback. The first volume is obviously the Grant Morrison, Brian Hitch first 12 issues, and then they got the Mark Miller, Frank Quitely, Art Adams, and some other writer, rest of them, right? And I'm missing like maybe 3 or 4 issues of this original series, and I've been picking up number 1s forever in dollar boxes. James Gunn came out, I think it was last year, announced that the Authority would be having a movie, and that was his love letter. Like, that was his dream. That's the one where he was being a little selfish, lovingly about like, I'm doing this one. That's the one that's for me. That's a dream project. So instead of trying to track those books down to have a complete, I have a ton of that Warren Ellis. I have all the Warren Ellis Storm watches. I was there from the beginning. Charlton 66 years ago sent me some of the trades for the little issues I was missing, and I got motivated, and a good thing I did. So this was great to find, but I believe this is a $40 book that I went ahead and got for bought for $15. Excuse me, $35.99, $35 book, brand new, unopened. So while I was at the comic book shop, moving right along, guys, let's check this out. Here we go. What we have here, comics. Fortune and Glory was a great Bendis comic, probably my favorite by him. See, I would check that out. I would check that out. See, yeah, when it comes to Bendis, like I said, if it's crime, detectives, and things like that, he can nail it, right? But I don't know what this Fortune and Glory is. I feel like if I see it, I'm going to smack myself and be like, oh yeah. But I know I have not read it. Okay, so I'll definitely look that up. Is what I will. So before we get to the trades I want to talk about here, but I don't know if you remember these, but I was given this, right? And I don't think comic book shops are supposed to be selling promotional material. That free stuff that they put in there, like Comics News Weekly or whatever they call it. The posters they put on the wall that's sent to them for free. But I need to start collecting these. I have 1 or 2 of these, and 1 or 2 of these, one of them that I still have that I acquired when it came out, has a Madman game designed by Mark Allred on the back of the page. It's fantastic, a little board game, But these are Dark Horse extras. This one is from 1998. issue number 4. And I think the first 12 issues, I don't know. These came out, like I said, to announce comics in them and stuff, right? But Dark Horse gave you comic strips in them. You got a Madman comic strip. You have Concrete down here. It tells you the chapters and the part 4s and things, right? So before there was Wednesday's comics, there was Dark Horse Extra in the 90s. And then, of course, you would fold them out. We have to use this camera, guys. And like I said, on the back of them, we even have a Sergio Aragonis strip, advertisements for their Zippo lighters that were coming out, a little bit of news, comics that were coming out, and you never knew what you were going to find on the inside. So this one, Boogeyman, Sergio Aragonis's Boogeyman was coming out. I have all 4 issues of that. And of course, it would announce what books were coming out and when. That was the whole point of it. But Dark Horse went that extra step and gave you all this for free. So I really need to go ahead and try to track down the rest of these. Because as far as I know, and I have done zero research, I don't think those strips have been collected. There have been several complete collections of Concrete to come out. I know there's some sort of, I remember there was a complete Madman omnibus or something that came out. Maybe they're in there. I don't know. But I really dig that stuff. Oh, here we go. More about Fortune and Glory, guys. It's a comedy about making one of his comics into a movie. Oh, okay. If it's okay, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. I will definitely look that up. I kind of enjoy things like that. Semi-autobiographical. That's what they are. So some other free promotional material I ended up picking up at the comic book shop was this Barbarian Batman. Give me 1 second here. Yeah. Heroes, worlds you don't. From whatever this is, Batman the Barbarian, an Elseworlds Tale. Now, if you do, what was those? Can't believe I'm going blank on it because I had them and stuff, right? But that is not the first Barbarian Batman I have. Oh my goodness, what was that series? Why am I going blank on it? The anthology series of the Batman that came out around 88, 89. Everybody did 4-issue stories on it. Oh my God, Tales of the Dark Knight? I don't know. That seems too obvious. Anyway, there's a Batman Barbarian story sort of kind of there. And then, of course, Grant Morrison did his Return to Bruce Wayne story where, after Final Crisis, we have Batman in a cave and we get different incarnations of him as he's traveling in time coming back to us. He was Solomon Kane like Pilgrim, and he was a pirate. And there's one where I believe he was a barbarian. And then we also had this. I just thought this was an outstanding image, even for a Green Lantern Dark. Love the manga influence in this. Very cool. I just found that striking. They had a ton of those. What do we have here? That's the board. Okay, guys, so let's get to what? Legends of the Dark Knight. Dear God, thank you very much. All right. Everybody raise a toast to Comics Relax for, it's not a Howler Mouse show until, I have brain fart. Maybe one of the few times you hear me say fart. I'm not a fan of that word. All right. Some people don't like moist. I don't like fart. All right, so let's get to the meat of the matter. Okay, so we'll just get to this, and then we'll just have a little talk about these. All right, guys. So right here, what you have here is that this blew me away. I was going back and forth. I'd already bought the books you saw, the keys you saw. Like I said, there's 1 or 2 floating around here. I think, I think this was from the comic book shop. I don't know. Shit. I don't know. Anyway, it's not important, right? But anyway, so Comic Pops had this and he had this, right? That was the main things I bought of them. And I already bought the hardback, right? I bought issues I believe it was 130 to 138 last year. of the original Dark Phoenix saga, right? 131 to 138, whatever it was, right? Um, and then I saw this beautiful trade, right? And I just assumed this was from the late 80s, right? Because in my mind, I would see the advertisements or the checklist in the bullpen bulletins and stuff of this graphic novel coming out or whatever they called it at the time, trades and stuff. This was a new concept, right, back then, right? In my opinion, right? Yes, we had Sons of Origins or the things that Stan did in the 80s and Incredible Hulk stuff. Give you an idea now that I'm sitting here and we're thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, you had these and things like that. So it wasn't that it was new, but those were usually had a theme, and those were for the Silver Age stuff that you can get a hold of and stuff, right? So all of a sudden, you have the Dark Phoenix permeating the 80s, with the X-Men ruling at Marvel in sales and stuff, everything like that, right? So I was cantankerous and kind of steered away from that in the Titans a little bit stuff. When I was 12, it was over. I got sucked in. I already had a few X-Men books here and there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wasn't in a bubble ignoring this stuff like it didn't happen. I just didn't go fanboy nuts over it and stuff. But it was the Asgardian Wars that brought me in. I went mainstream, I guess, is when it happened. So I see this, and I'm really infatuated with getting these 80s graphic novels. I've been finding them pretty cheap, and they're fantastic. I don't have to dig through my boxes, and the way that they feel and the way that they look and how different they are. And I'm like, okay, this was an evolution. This is like with comic book history. I get to see what they did with them. They didn't put the covers in them. They took out parts of the book. I was warned about this by people watching the shows and talking to people. They would remove subplots out of the comics and keep it centric to whatever the story was telling. I think they did that. This was the one they told me they did that in The Trial of Galactus by John Byrne. And of course, this one here, Ground Zero, this is the one that started it all with really wanting these graphic novels. So that's why I was perplexed. I did not want to just go throw around money. I planned on going Christmas shopping that day. I'd already bought the original X-Men issues. Why would I want this? I also have classic X-Men classics, classic X-Men doing the reprints. If you know that series of it, I have that complete set. So I have the Dark Knight Returns, or Dark Knight Returns. Excuse me, folks. The Dark Phoenix. Let me drink some coffee. So I went back and Pop Comics gave me a deal. They gave me a deal. I got this for an immaculate price. It was fantastic, right? Right up my alley. How could I say no? So this sits around for 2 or 3 days before I get to it, right? And it finally happens. If you have it on Instagram, you've seen this, right? So I heard stories. I actually saw, I can't remember if I've seen it in my mind. I saw the interview, or I definitely read it, where John Byrne has a comic and somebody wants him to sign it at a con. I think it's in the late 80s. And he's like, the proper place to sign a comic is on the inside first page of the cover. You don't decimate the cover. Well, that's come and gone for most people, right? So imagine as I'm going through this, and number one, I find out that this is a out of print first print out of print story. There were several printings of this from 1984. It just did not dawn on me that in 1984 there were trades, trade paper collections like this in a forward. And on the very first page, I look down and I'm like, it's signed by John Byrne. So that was a treat. Okay. And as I went through here, I was like, this is not bad. This is fantastic. This is very cool. We get, it's all there. The paper quality has held up for a 1984 book, right? But we do not get the covers. That blows me away. I wonder what their thinking was at the time. So that was just a treat. I just found it, if you're subscribed to the channel and you saw some of the stuff that we've been doing here with Namor, it's like John Byrne is just popping up everywhere. I'm talking about John Byrne. I have a John Byrne. I already have a John Byrne X-Men live show that I did in 2020 that I found. I already have a John Byrne videos where I'm showing all of his Action Comics. I have another one where I'm showing all the Superman comics. I'm sure there's other John Byrne centric videos from the past and stuff. So just imagine my thinking when I'm like, wow, here we are talking a lot about John Byrne on the channel, all of us together. And now I found my second signature of John Byrne. My first one I actually bought at a flea market for $1. It came with a certificate of authenticity, which I could not believe. Also, yeah, and it's a Superman book. I have it framed. And then to find the X-Men, the X-Men story. You know what I mean? In an out of print first edition here. Wow. Wow. What did I pay for this, folks? I think I paid $10. And when this thing came out, it was $6.95. That'd be a $30 trade now, probably, with today's prices, I'm guessing. 25 to 30. I've seen some for 20 now. Some people are still holding at 20, but that's DC. This is Marvel. So I don't know what's going on, but I'm really digging these early trades. Trades did not really become a thing until the early 90s. A real market in demand until Sandman came out. Neil Gaiman's Sandman, and that's when it popped and the boom hit, thanks to the character of Death, Neil Gaiman's death and stuff, right? But I'm probably going to actually do. I don't know if anybody's even interested anymore and stuff, right? But I would love to just kind of do a little research, maybe just do an entire video showing these early trades from Marvel that I have here. That are fantastic. Especially now that I know they go back to 1984. And like I said, when it comes to like the Sons of Origins and things like that, I know those are technically trades, but I feel like there's another name for them because of their purpose. They were more Stan Lee being a little bit historical about the important Marvel comics of the early days. Okay. So, guys, we have hung out for about an hour. I've had a blast. I'm very glad I got to see all of you this morning. We're going to finish our coffee. We are going to go see the Christmas play this morning. And then I want to shoot a video later today of my artwork. So, once again, thumbs up. Come on, thumbs it up, share it. My analytics have shown that people have been sharing the videos and the live streams, so I appreciate it very much. And like I said, if you guys don't mind, like I said, it's a process. It'll get better. But go check out my live stream I did earlier in the week where I'm starting to do a little bit of artwork online and stuff, right? For you guys that came in late, that's the one I drew online. And then I was sitting around and I'm like, I could do better. And this is what I ended up doing after the fact in my little $5 Walmart sketchbook. This is the one that I don't care if it gets beat up or lost. That is a tongue. It's supposed to be a tongue, But yeah. So we're going to be playing around, showing artwork. And like I said, the artwork will have comic featured stuff sometimes, but it's not always going to be about comics on that part, right? So anyway, you guys have an excellent day. Like, subscribe, hit that bell. Holidays are coming up for everyone. And yeah, have an excellent day and be excellent to each other. Read your comics. Read your comics. Later.